At this point, I'd like to call upon Deepti Desai, a very key and instrumental director of the IIT Bay Area Alumni Board. She's an expert in high-impact healthcare solutions utilizing technology and innovation to transform and save lives. She has been involved in executing strategies for effective cross-border growth across sectors, including healthcare. Dipti has held multiple leadership roles across organizations, driving massive business and community efforts. She's a venture partner at Elevate.vc. She's also a co-chair at Thai Global Health and most recently a convener at TaiCon 2021. Dipti, please take this away.
Hi. A warm welcome to everyone joining us from across the world, and thank you, Sarwat. As Sarwat said, I'm Dipti Desai, and I'm proud to be a board member of IIT Bay Area, an organization that is really dear to my heart and connects IITians in the Bay Area to those across the world. I'm also a board member of Thai Silicon Valley, a venture partner at Accelerate and Elevate VC, and a managing director at Care is One, a foundation that brings all of healthcare together and is supported by Innovation. This session is particularly interesting to me, and it's really a very special session because Sam Pitroda's name is one that many of us have known for a very long time. We grew up with his name. So when Sam Pitroda says it's time to redesign the world, it's time to sit up and take notice. Sam is well known not only in India, but also across the world, as he has developed and devoted a major part of his life to public service. And unlike most people who enter the political arena, he has vast technical knowledge, which he uses constantly to improve the world. To do justice to his introduction, I feel like I would have to take up most of his speaking time. So it would be suffice for me to say that he's a founder, an investor, a chairman of 6 startups. Wow, people start 1 or 2, but 6 is amazing. And 5 nonprofit foundations. He holds over 100 patents and 20 honorary PhD degrees. He is the man who laid the foundation for India's telecommunication revolution in the 1980s. Today, he has written a book which is called Redesign the World. It just came out and it has some brand new ideas on how to think about the world. Since this is a moderated session that Sam asked me to work with him on, I thought that I would begin by asking a question. But really, today's session is all about him and the audience that we have here. So I would love to request the audience to chime in and pose the questions for Sam in the Q&A box on the screen that you have so that we can pose those to you. So let's wind back to the 70s and 80s. You came from a small village in India and you came to the US for your master's. The world was your oyster, and at the end of that, you decided to go back to India. What prompted you to do that? And can you tell the audience over here a little bit about that journey?
Thank you, Dipti. Thank you for the opportunity. It is indeed a privilege, an honor for me to be with the IIT Bay Area community. Dipti, as you said, I was born and raised in a small little tribal village in Orissa. My father had 4th grade education. We were Gujaratis who came to Orissa to settle in 30s. And those were the early days of independence movement. I was born in 1942, about 80 years ago. And our role model then was Mahatma Gandhi. Being a Gujarati family, the only connection we had with Gujarat then was Gandhi. So we grew up in Gandhian values. Things like truth, trust, love, inclusion, diversity, justice, simplicity became very core ideas at very early age. Since there were no schools in this village, My parents decided to send us to Gujarat for boarding school. When I was 9, my brother was 12. We studied there. I went to University at Baroda, got a degree in physics, master's in physics. And then one fine day, read in the newspaper that President Kennedy has decided to send man onto the moon. I was young, energetic, and decided to come to America. I took a boat from Mumbai to Karachi, Karachi to Aden, Aden to Egypt, Egypt to Italy, took a train from Italy to London, took a plane from London to New York, and took a bus from New York to Chicago. This was 1964.
Wow.
Almost 57 years ago. And I've lived in Chicago all my life. I worked in Telecom in early days. In 1965, I started on digital switching. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those few people who have had chance to work on vacuum tube. Transistor was invented 5 years after I was born. I bought first 16-bit memory for $16. I bought 2-input NAND gate for $32. I worked with Intel in early days when they were designing 4-bit microprocessor. And I had a very interesting time being part of the digital revolution in a very different way. I've been in it for about 55 years. And in between, after I sold my first company to Rockwell International in 1979, I went to India to take my parents to see Taj Mahal and could not make a phone call to my wife. Little bit of arrogance and a lot of ignorance said, I'm going to spend next 10 years in connecting India. Because I believed that IT and telecom would change the face of India. This was 1980. It was a brand new idea then. I got to meet Mrs. Indira Gandhi when she was Prime Minister. I gave her an hour presentation. And I decided that I got to make a major decision in my life, whether I want to remain in business and build wealth for myself, or I want an opportunity to help build India.
Yes.
So I decided to spend time on public service, spent 10 years then with Rajiv Gandhi, went back to India for good, changed my nationality from US to Indian, worked with him on telecom, IT, technology, missions, literacy, immunization, cooking oil, milk production, and all of that, including telecom. Then I had a heart attack, quadruple bypass, Rajiv Gandhi died. I ran out of money, decided to come back to America. But I had no visa to come back. So I again came back as a tourist. Started my life again. Then when Manmohan Singh became Prime Minister, I once again went back for 10 years, worked with him on Knowledge Commission, Head of Innovation Council, Digital India with a rank of a cabinet minister. And then again, when we lost election, I decided to come home to Chicago and do a lot of other interesting things. So I had an interesting journey, a lot of support from friends and family, people like you, and I'm thankful to everyone.
Thanks, Sam. That's such an incredible journey. I mean, it's amazing. It shows and proves that if you feel deeply and passionately about what you want to do, you can go about and achieve it. And you proved that, and you actually impacted a whole nation by transforming the telecommunications in the 80s and 90s. So fast forward to today, we went through this major pandemic, the lockdown, the isolation. I think everybody here and across the world on this planet have experienced it. Many of us actually hunkered down, went into a period of deep introspection, thinking about not only just our lives, but also how we lead them and what matters to us on a personal level. But you, on the other hand, you took this time and you decided to be very productive. You thought not only about yourself, but you thought about what can you do for the planet? What can you do for the world? So can you tell us a little bit about this book that you have written called Redesign the World, and the motivation for the book that all of us can now have the opportunity to read? It is on Amazon, by the way.
Dipti, like all of us, I was locked up in self-quarantine in Chicago. And when I started reviewing my own life and the journey of technology, I realized that we all knowingly, unknowingly operate based on the last design of the world, which was conceived just about the time I was born. We don't even question that design. And everybody gets busy in making money, solving problems of the rich. Everybody's busy, designing new products, services, which is great. But when you sit back and see the core design of the world, which was essentially initiated by US around 1942, created UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO, GDP, GNP, per capita income, balance of payment, rule-based system. The whole world follows that. Handful of people decided that. India was a colony, so nobody asked India. China didn't matter. Africa didn't matter. So 5 little countries said, we are going to rule the world by creating this design. And that design continues. And when I look at it, I believe that design doesn't work anymore. That design does not work because of hyperconnectivity. For the first time in the human history, we are all connected. What does this connectivity mean to the civilization? Is it about just creating more wealth? Is it about better productivity, efficiency, new gadgets, cost savings, creating billionaires?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it about solving the challenges related to sustainability and inclusion? So when I started thinking about these things, I realized that hyperconnectivity brings about democratization of knowledge, decentralization of decision-making, demonetization of services, and it's all about content and context.
That's really
in that environment, COVID-19 told us that there are only 2 things that matter: planet and people. We have really put planet in pain because of global warming, environmental blunders. We have put people in pain because of inequality. There is huge inequality in the world. Best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich, who really don't have problems to solve. And as a result, problems of the planet and people at the bottom of the economic pyramid don't get the right talent because it's not paying. And that is the focus I had. So when I look at the design 80 years ago, I see 7 interesting things that happened. And we can talk about that later on. But the idea was to really think of the grand idea of redesigning the world. Not that I'm capable with all the answers, but I want to start a new conversation.
Sure. No, I think that's great. And I'm looking over here. The questions have already started pouring in. We have with us today previous speakers, Jay Chaudhary and Raj Yavatkar and so many others. And I have a message from Raj.
They're all very accomplished people. My compliments to all of them.
Thank you.
And we are all proud of them.
Yes, yes. Raj has to say that Sam is a hero for me. He created an indigenous circuit switching ecosystem in India, amongst many other things. So, I mean, people
in
are...
Rajiv Gandhi's time, we decided to focus on building human capacity. We started Center for Development of Telematics. We worked on C++ language programming. This is 1980, remember. We took 16-bit microprocessor for distributed architecture. And then we set up Center for Development of Advanced Computing to design India's first supercomputer. This was 40 years ago, 35 years ago. And in the process, we trained large number of capable people. I know Infosys when Infosys had 5 people.
Yeah.
I mean, Nandan and others used to hang around my office. They know it. I know Wipro when they had 8 people.
Yes.
When Jack Welch came to India, Rajiv Gandhi didn't have time. So he asked me to handle Jack Welch, chairman of GE. And we sold him the idea of software talent from India. We connected him to and his team to Infosys Wipros. We got our first order for $10 million. Remember, in 1981, we had 2 million telephones.
Yes.
It used to take 10 years to get a telephone connection.
Oh my God, I remember.
Today, we have 1.2 billion phones.
Most connected country.
Then we had zero software export. Today, we do almost $150 to $200 billion worth of software service export every year, year after year. Indian talent is well respected all over the world. And the credit goes to a lot of young Indian talent, Indian entrepreneurs, right kind of policies. In those days, privatization was a dirty word.
Yeah.
And we privatized telecom against all the odds. We organized labors to respond to it. We computerized the railway reservation system. People don't remember all of these things. We also launched first vaccine factory. India did not produce any vaccine then. We launched the first vaccine factory as part of a technology mission on immunization. And today we are the largest producer of vaccine in the world. We are largest producer of milk in the world. So when a lot of people say nothing got done, I feel sorry for them. They are ignorant. They lie. A lot of things got done in the last 7 years.
Yeah, and it's amazing how technology, and I have to say a little bit of credit also goes to these IITs out there in India that actually educated so many of the people that are there in the audience today to create a workforce that could actually implement everything.
At very low cost. I got my master's in physics in India for $10.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the contribution of India to my life. Okay.
So what
a lot of our IIT graduates benefited from that.
Yeah. And we are very, very happy to say so many of them here, including really accomplished, influential people, Jay Chaudhary, Raj Yavatkar, and many other speakers that you will hear from today later on. And so, Sam, going back to the book that you have, you alluded to the 5 pillars and the tipping point. And you've mentioned in the book the profound impact it has on the world. Would you want to elaborate a little bit more on that so that the people out here want to read the book in great depth and have more conversations on it?
Thank you. When the design was conceived, US had 5 main pillars to push. 1, democracy. 2, human rights. 3, capitalism. 4, consumption. And 5th, military. This was the core of the design. Then world was bipolar. You had US and you had Soviet Union. Soviet Union had exactly opposite to US agenda except military buildup. These 5 pillars were the core of rebuilding the world, which was in ruin. So Japan agreed, Europe agreed, and this design has done pretty well. It's not that design didn't work. Design worked very well for a while. It maintained peace in the world, lifted millions out of poverty, democratized technology, it improved longevity, reduced infant mortality, but at the same time, it created massive environmental blunders, did not address challenges of poverty and hunger, and did not create any impact on violence. So I think when you look at the design 70 years, 80 years down the road, you realize that the fundamental challenges today in the world that we all face relate to 1, inclusion. This world is not inclusive. Women are not included. Minorities are not included. We differentiate people based on race, religion, caste, color. In US, we have Black Lives Matter. In India, we have Dalits and others. We need inclusive world. Because at the end of the day, we are all connected. And coronavirus tells us we are all interrelated, interconnected, interdependent. And if inclusion is not at the core of the design, and exclusion is promoted everywhere, like we did during Trump's time, dividing societies does not get us anywhere. All wars in the world had roots in exclusion. But no one pays attention to inclusion. That's not core part of the design. Then basic human needs are critical, more important than human rights. We can produce anything today. The key is what is that we want to produce and for whom do we want to produce? We wind up for producing for the people who can afford to buy and not for people who need it. We live in an economy of surplus, but we think like economy of scarcity. So I want to take democracy to inclusion.
Yes.
I want to take human rights to human needs. Capitalism doesn't work for everybody. Capitalism works only for the top of the pyramid. It makes rich richer and it keeps poor at the bottom. So I want to redesign capitalism. We need new economy, regenerative economy, bottom-up development. Small is beautiful, network organizations, don't break in silos, and change the whole development to paradigm upside down. And then consumption is not the answer. We have overconsumed in many ways. We need conservation and sustainability. Today we take out from Earth 3 billion metric tons of raw material. How long we can go on like this? 100 years?
Yeah.
You got to stop somewhere. And finally, I hope we have matured as a civilization that we can sort out our differences across the table. And we don't need to build supersonic missiles to kill each other. We spend $2 trillion a year on defense. We can eliminate hunger for 200 billion a year. Why don't we do it? Why not? Unfortunately, all our global leaders look at world with the old design in mind. So their conversation is, right now there's a G20 meeting going on, geopolitical equation, markets, economy, trade. No one talks about inclusion. No one talks about health. No one in this crisis said that I will reduce my health budget to improve my health infrastructure. Because these leaders are petty, narrow-minded. You need Gandhian kind of leadership, which goes beyond personal interest to public interest. But everybody is looking at only personal interest. Then who's going to talk about public interest?
Yeah. We have to change
the challenge in the world today.
Yeah, we have to change our thinking. We have to think collaboratively. We have to think for the greater good. We have to think for caring for all.
Not only think, Dipti, we need to share.
Right. Yeah.
You see, today there are two designs in the world. American design, which says promote superpower America. Second, Chinese design, Belt and Road Initiative. China wants to sort of control. Both of those designs are based on command and control. We need a third design, which is based on collaboration, cooperation, co-creation, networking, where everybody is at the table. I think hyperconnectivity allows us to do this. And that's why I come back to the fact that hyperconnectivity is the core to redesign the world.
And technology makes that possible, that hyperconnectivity.
And hyperconnectivity implies everything. It implies big data, analytics, IoT, fiber optics, you name it. Genetics, biotech, you name it.
Everything that brings the whole world together. There is a question here that goes back to the point that, small companies are there to disrupt, and they are the ones who will help bring this disruption and change that you're looking to see. and the big companies find it harder to disrupt. So the question is, why is it that these big fat companies find it hard to disrupt, whereas the new startups or small companies disrupt? They're more agile. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
First, let me tell you, Dipti, that all innovations happen at the edge and not at the core.
Mm-hmm.
All innovations in the history have happened at the edge. So IBM could not invent, so you had Apple.
Sure.
You had Google. You had Facebook, because inventions happen at the edge. And that's where the small entrepreneur comes in. You're trying to disturb and disrupt, but what is the key question? Okay, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to solve the problem of hunger? Are you trying to solve the problem of violence? Or you are trying to prepare a little new gadget that rich can buy? I mean, that's the basic debate.
And here's another question, Sam. You have changed countless lives. So many engineers I respect started their careers at CDOT, an amazing institution that you helped build. Do you wish that India had possessed wireless communication sooner?
Well, I wish we had continued with our effort on indigenous development. You know, CDOT was formed before Huawei was incorporated.
Yeah.
We could have done much better than Huawei. We had all the talent. But because of political changes, we lost political will.
Yeah.
Rajiv Gandhi gave political will to us to build human capacity, indigenous development, local production, rural telecom, local talent, ancillary industries. When he lost election, we lost that political will and things fell apart. Rajiv Gandhi also gave meaning to my own life. You know, I was just an engineer. I could have remained engineer, made maybe a couple of $1 billion, but that wouldn't have made me happier, content, fulfilled. So I think it is important to have political will.
Yes.
And we lost that.
Do you think across the world we have the political will to redesign the world? What will it take?
No, we don't have. We don't have. Because all the rich and famous and people in power have no need to change. Why should they change? They are milking the system. Okay, at the cost of some poor guy. Okay, why should they change? Those who need to change don't have a voice in the system. So voice has to be created from bottom up. I mean, you look at World Economic Forum. Okay, do they have a need to change? They can talk about poverty. What are they going to do about poverty? I've been there once, you know. So I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm saying they have a different interest.
Sure.
You have to respect that. Okay. But somebody has to say, we got to start from the bottom up. Change has to come from within each one of us. You know, when at G20, nobody talks about inclusion, there cannot be inclusion. All our institutions that we have created in the last 70 years need to be redone. Can you imagine in last 80 years, we have not created one new global institutions? One. Like UN, World Bank, IMF, NATO, WTO, WHO. How can you have that structure for 70 years? Nobody is even questioning that. Okay. And all I want to begin to question saying, do we need a global institution on non-violence? Because violence begins at home. Violence begins against women. Violence begins in the streets, in the community. Look at the amount of children who get killed in Chicago every year. And I've been here for 57 years, and that number hasn't changed. US has the largest number of people in the prison in the world in terms of percentage. Why? Our answer to that is militarize our police, give them cameras, hire more police, build more prisons. The entire paradigm is wrong. You got to question everything based on hyperconnectivity.
So if you would like to see some changes in the world, where would you begin? What would you suggest that people out there, you, me, others on this conversation over here, do about it? Are there
I would
any?
first suggest read the book. Then I would say, believe in the 5 new pillars. You practice inclusion. You practice new economy. You practice non-violence. You focus on sustainability. Because the only thing I can do is change myself. I can't change anybody. I can change myself. Okay. So can I be a change agent who will demand new design? Can I be a change agent who would say, hey, we need non-violent world. We need inclusive world. I will treat women equally, with respect, with dignity. I will treat Dalit, eat with them. I will have black friends, and I will, join them in their journey. That is the beginning.
Each one of us has to make that change, a personal choice, in order to bring the transformative change of the world, right?
And it will require some sacrifice.
Yes.
Okay. Are we willing to make that sacrifice?
Yeah. I'm picking different things than what you've done in the past. I have another question here, which says, what kind of technologies would be good candidates for climate reclaiming? And what is the lowest hanging fruit or the first problem that you think in your mind should be tackled from that perspective?
See, you cannot think in terms of products. This is not a product. Redesign of the world is not a product. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And process has to look at the holistic approach. You can't dissect things and think in terms of box. American system thinks in terms of box.
Yeah.
I'm 80-year-old, so I'm old. I'm brown. I'm Hindu. You cannot think in those terms. You got to think across all boundaries. So my answer would be, when you think of redesign, you cannot take one item and say, just create inclusive world. No, it has to be inclusive, sustainable, non-violent. All of that has to happen at the same time. Otherwise, it is not going to happen. Low-hanging fruit, each one of us has to change is the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, each one of us is the low-hanging fruit. So it's kind of like applying the Gandhian principles to redesign.
If world had listened to Gandhi after World War, at the time this design was conceived, humanity would be at a different level. But Gandhi was then seen as one little fakir with no clothes on. And, what does he know? He knew everything. Believe me, he had answer to everything. Now people are beginning to realize. Now people understand when Einstein said, no one would believe that a man like this walked on this earth. Okay.
It's so amazing. We have such amazing people and such amazing products in India, but we don't adopt it till the Western world does, right? And I mean, we need to learn to market our own strengths. We need to figure out. It's not just
marketing. It's not marketing. You see, we tend to think world in terms of products and markets.
But
that itself is a problem because we are all trained with Western mindset. Okay, it's IRR, productivity, efficiency, cost reduction, low-hanging fruit, all this stuff, startup, innovation, You got to look at holistic approach.
We need to internalize it.
Family, community. Take, for example, the soil in Gujarat is very different from soil in Orissa.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take fertilizer and equalize all soil, because microbes in Gujarat are very different from microbes in Orissa. But world says, use my fertilizer and make everything same. In the process, you're ruined.
Yeah.
Soil. So we got to focus on localization. We got to focus on local wisdom, local culture. Diversity is the biggest fertile ground for innovation. India is the most diverse country in the world. When people say India does not invent, I don't agree. Look at Indian food.
Yeah.
Talk about invention. Indian music, Indian dance. There is so much. But today we equate invention with software, satellite, microchips.
Mhm.
There is more to life than that.
So true. And I think what you've told us over here is going to hang around in people's mind for the rest of the day. And hopefully they'll have a chance to read your book. There are so many more questions out here in the forum. I'm going to take them all and share them with you. But I know we are running out of time. I see the IIT team here ready to move on to the next session. But thank you, Sam. It was great redesigning.
Thank you, Dipti. Thank you for the opportunity. And I wish all IITians great success. They are something we are all proud of and hope we remain connected.
And so many of them are graduates or have worked at CDOT, something that you helped create.
They're all great human beings.
Thank
Believe me,
you.
they are all wonderful people. I worked with them. They gave their life to me for 3 years. Okay, so I'm thankful to them.
Thanks, Sam. It was a pleasure to have
Thanks.
you here. And
Thank you.
thank you all.
I will disconnect.
Thank you so much, Sam. And
yes.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Sam. All right. Thank you so much, Sam and Dipti. It's so strange, you know, you hear someone talk so many times in the past, but you still end up having an epiphany every time you hear them next. It's like that with Sam for me. Amazing talk.
Thank you, Amina.
Now,
Thank you.
next, sure.